You're listening to a podcast of Reality Check, hosted by Charles Ellison, Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. right here on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Joining me now is Jeff Clayton. Jeff Clayton, Executive Director for the American Bail Coalition. For more information on the American Bail Coalition. Jeff, how are you doing? Your website escapes me now. The American Bail Coalition's website, if you could provide that, if you can. And Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah, you too. It's AmericanBailCoalition.org. I wish I could come in and fix the phone lines, but
yeah, right. Yeah, that's all right.
I don't have that kind of technical expertise.
No, that's all right. That's all right. You know, sometimes that happens during like these cold snaps too. Though all sorts of weird things will happen to infrastructure. You know, like whether it's phone lines or streets or sewer systems or what have you, or water systems. So, you know, we kind of like expect a little bit. People have to just get prepared for it. AmericanBailCoalition.org. Thanks so much, Jeff, for joining us. So the American Bail Coalition, you folks having some issues with that historic California Senate Bill 10 that was passed last year and signed into law. That was a significant bail reform effort that was launched in California, but there were some issues surrounding risk assessment tools. You all, the American Bail Coalition, you don't like SB 10. There's some problems when there's a number of other folks who jumped in against SB 10. It looks like they're going to have force a referendum on it. So explain.
Yeah, exactly. So we were opposing bail reform, which at that point was let everybody out unaccountable, whatever. But it became a civil rights disaster when they decided to introduce the lock 'em up portion of the bill. I've been accused of, jumping on the bandwagon, but the reality is the bill that passes is a civil rights disaster because it implements the federal bail system in the state of California. And at that point, I reached out to industry partners and everybody, and I said, we got to stop this thing. So we raised $3 million. We stopped it, and it's not going to go into effect for the next 2 years.
You call it a civil rights disaster. Why is that?
Because I think really, to say that people shouldn't, can't afford their bail and they should be able to get out is one thing. But to say that we should give the government the power to preventatively detain people is something else. And California had never gone there in terms of expanding preventative detention for a generation. And that's the basis of this bill, that we're going to use an algorithm. The algorithm is going to decide who's in jail and who's out of jail. And that's just contrary to, the tradition in California. Yeah, no,
we had this debate here in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, really, about the risk assessment tool, the use of that algorithm. And so what specifically about that algorithm, what particular aspects or more specific aspects of it were troubling you?
Well, for me, it was predictiveness. I don't think they're predictive. I think for everybody else, it was racial bias. And when the 110 civil rights groups came out and said, we think algorithms in the criminal justice system are racially biased and we shouldn't use them, that became a problem. And in Pennsylvania, that's the reality. I mean, nobody's supporting the new sentencing algorithm. And the reason is on these algorithms is, look, we take a picture of the status quo and we base the algorithm on that. And most people would say, well, we don't like the status quo. And if you take a picture of the status quo and you base an algorithm on that, guess what you're going to get? The status quo. And so most people would say there's racial bias. We need to do something about that. But if we lock in today, we'll never get away from today. And
but what's wrong with, also having concerns about it because of the racial bias dimension?
Well, I think, the concern is that the algorithms will magnify racial bias rather than correct it. And in the bail system and all, the system of arrest, there is racial bias. There is disparate impact on African-American communities. My view is that stems from unsolved issues related to slavery, et cetera, that we haven't gotten over as a country. But I can guarantee you that these reforms are not going to fix that.
We're talking with Jeff Clayton, Executive Director for the American Bail Coalition. Go to AmericanBailCoalition.org for more information and get some sense of why they are opposed to SB 10, as it's called. That was seen as a major achievement as far as bail reform, as far as criminal justice reform. And so talk a little bit about that, too, Jeff, as far as bail reform is a major core argument or a core supporting foundation for larger, more comprehensive criminal justice reform. But I know you have some issues and concerns about that.
Yeah, my view is bail is a way to challenge the state. I mean, look, I'm Scots-Irish, so I don't trust the state. I want the state out of my business. And I think for African-American people, other defendants that face a disparate impact, that should be their view. And the bail system is an avenue to challenge the government. So, to give the government more power like we did in California and posit that that's a solution, I think is a joke. And I think people are realizing that now.
Mm-hmm. So what do we do? I mean, we have seen these disparities go on for quite some time with that traditional or conventional bail or cash bail system. So, I mean, something has to be done to eliminate those disparities, to eliminate that bias. Risk assessment tool or no risk assessment tool, there's issues with that.
Yeah, and I think the entire criminal justice system suffers from that. Nobody can say that, oh, well, it's biased and that we're fixing it or that we're not fixing it. And the reality is we're not fixing it. And why are we not fixing it? Is because of this historical tradition. And whether that means reparations, whether that means some other way to upstart these communities that are in a hopeless position and continuing this trend, we have to address it. But I can tell you right now, all the criminal justice reform in the world is not going to solve that problem.
But you have people who feel like they're being, and it's not just with bail. I mean, there's other aspects of the criminal justice system too, and not even just criminal justice. I mean, just basic fines and fees like parking tickets, people going to jail for stuff like that or of that sort. So, we do acknowledge. I mean, there are aspects of the current cash bail system or that traditional cash bail system that's created these types of inequities.
Absolutely. And I think that just, combines with what you said is the fines and fees issue, which is pinning communities down that don't have money. And, you commit one offense and then you're in the system, then you can't get out and all that sort of thing. And, the people in the suburbs don't have that problem as much. They pay their fine and they're out. But if you don't pay, then you get a warrant, then you get another arrest and the cycle goes on. So there are absolutely issues that need to be solved, and the government should not be in the collections business. We can't, solve the criminal problem by collecting from criminals. It's never going to fix it.
You were saying that there were other jurisdictions around the country where there are laws that have been passed or implemented similar to SB 10. Talk about some of those places. And so they were dealing with some challenges. Actually, those SB 10 type laws tended to create more problems than they had anticipated. Talk about those.
Yeah, I think the state of Maryland is probably the best example that they could, detain people without bail. When they got rid of bail, judges had a choice. They could choose detention or release without bail, and they chose largely detention. And that's why the pretrial population in Baltimore went up, 22-23% in the first year. So when there's no bail, there's jail. And I think that's a simple message. And in New Jersey, the trend toward incarceration is accelerating. And I think it will continue to accelerate. When you give the government the power to lock people up, there's only one way, to sort of non-quench the thirst, and that's bail.
So do we have a cash bail system or not?
I think we need it. I think we want it. And people can debate as to whether people should profit off of it. But at the end of the day, the ability for the community to put up for a guy and say, no, stop, and get him out of jail is something we need. Without it, the government will run roughshod on these people, and we as community members need to stop that when we know that the state's getting it wrong. Yeah,
and I'm trying to figure out, what would that cash bill? Okay, so we have cash bill. So what would that look like, though? I mean, how would, as the American Bail Coalition, what are you proposing that fair cash bail system look like?
Well, we have a what's called the fourth generation of bail reform in America. You can go to our website and check it out. But we're advocating for the end of the use of bail as a collections mechanism, going back to what bail should originally mean, which is ensuring that somebody appears and the ability to challenge the government. So, we think there are massive problems in the bail system, but we think there's an elegant and simple way to get there, which is, you're in or you're out. And let's not bullshit around, sorry to use the word, about that we're going to have this interim sort of purgatory period that we can put them on an ankle monitor and all this kind of stuff. Let's fess up. They're either in or they're out, and let's get on with it.
All right, okay, I'm going to let you slide on that. You got to watch this family-friendly radio. But bail, say bail is a collection system. What is that? What does that mean when you say bail is a collection system? Because I'm a little bit confused. What's the difference between? Bail it kind of is a collection system. Even if we were to, it seems like with just a cash bail, a basic cash bail system, that's collection. So when you say as a cash bail, as a collection system, what makes it any different? What makes it sort of like a new kind of radically altered thing?
Well, it's not radically altered, but I think what I would say is that in most places in the country, judges want to do cash bail, meaning they actually takes people's cash. And we don't post cash. So when somebody posts a 10% deposit with a bail bondsman, they don't get it back, but the state's not going to take it. When you post 100% of your own cash in many jurisdictions, the state's going to take it. And judges and systems set it up to where they know people aren't going to appear, and we want to keep the cash, or they're going to plead guilty when we keep the cash. So we have to get rid of the idea that the bail system is a big funder for the government. And I think that perverts the system for why bails are offered.
Yeah, we also have to kind of get rid of the idea, would you agree, Jeff? I mean, the idea that with a cash bail system, that's also a way to indefinitely hold someone in jail. And that's a big part of the problem. That's what bail reform advocates are saying. Like, you impose these types of fines and fees, this collection system, and it's indefinite. People are like, basically without any convictions, without any real charges, really, without any sort of trial going on, they're spending days, months, weeks, months in jail because of bail.
That's right. And, the presumption of innocence. I mean, obviously, I think there should be bail because I want to get out of jail. But let's say that, we should get rid of the cash bail system. Well, the reality is detention without bail will be the substitute. And what we've seen in Maryland and other jurisdictions is that it's worse. And in the San Francisco case, that's, this federal civil rights case, pretrial detention will increase by 5 to 10% if the alternative system is adopted. And so that's what we're talking about here, which is you don't want to be incarcerated and you want to have every option you can to open every door out of jail. To go to a system of preventative detention is to shut doors, not open them. And we're against that. And we think as an industry, all doors and more doors should be open for people to get out of jail.
All right. Talking about Jeff Clayton, Executive Director of the American Bail Coalition. Go to AmericanBailCoalition.org for more information there if you want to learn more about what they're up to and some of their advocacy surrounding issues such as SB 10 out in California and elsewhere. And he's been joining us by Skype here on Reality Check. Jeff, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you do the same.